Kakadosh Boker Or, Daf Yomi Masechet Batra Daf Amud Aleph 71a1. Says the Mishnah, Lo etabor velo etagat. If you're going to sell a field, you do not sell the pit, which obviously contains water. In order, it's like a irrigation. I wouldn't call it a canal because it's not a canal, but I'm saying it's for irrigation of the field. Velo etagat, or not the utensil which is used for the trampling of the wine, meaning like a wine press. Velo tashovach, and not the shovach. What's a shovach? The chicken coop. Ben charevin uben yeshuvin. Doesn't matter whether this pit, oil press, or like whatever, the wine press, and the chicken coop, there's no water, there's no vineyard, doesn't matter whether it's charev. Charev is like literally destroyed. Doesn't matter whether it's destroyed, meaning there's nothing there, or there is water, or there is the things. It doesn't matter. You're not selling it, because it's a separate entity in itself. You also have to purchase a path to go there. Okay? Meaning, right, because basically, since when you're going to come, you're going to sell, you sell ba'in yafa, which means that you sell with a good eye. These are the words of Rabbi Kiva. So therefore, if you left over for yourself this pit, you have to purchase for yourself a path to get to the pit. Or you have to purchase for yourself a path, right, derech, to get to the gat, to get to this wine press, or to get to the shovach. Chachamim come and they say, Eno tzarich. You don't need to. Why? Because when you sell with a bad eye. And therefore, since you sell with a bad eye,
you retain for yourself.
You leave over for yourself a path. So Rabbi Akiva is going to admit to the rabbis, if he told him, meaning if he explicitly said, I'm selling you the field, except for the pit. I'm selling you the field, except for this, or except for that. So eno tzarich tikach lo derech. You do not have to take a path. Okay? Fine. Next. Mecharan le'acher. If somebody's going to come and they're going to sell, right, this boar, the wine press, or the chicken coop, le'acher, to somebody else, right? Now he leaves the field to himself, meaning he didn't sell the field. He left the field to himself, but he only sold the pit, oil press, and all these things. So Rabbi Kiva comes and he says, Eno tzarich liknon lo derech. Right? The guy doesn't have to buy himself, right, a path, because obviously when he sells with a good eye, and therefore for sure he just didn't sell him a pit, right, that he has to fly into it. You understand? He sold him a path. He sells with a good eye. Chachamim come and they say, no, he has to purchase a path. Why? Chachamim l'shitatam, according to the reasoning, that you sell with a bad eye. So if you only sold him a pit, you're going to say, hey, but how do I get to the pit? Fly. Get yourself a cape. Yeah, start flying. That's a chachamim. But one of these words, b'mochet, we're talking about selling it. Aval benoten matana. Aval im ata noten matana lemishu. You give a present. Noten et kula. You give everything. Why? Because according to everybody, when you give a present, you're giving it with a good eye. And the logic is very simple. When you're selling, it just means you're selling. It doesn't mean that you like the guy. It doesn't mean that you're obligated to sell, so you just sell him something. But nothing else. When you're giving a present, who asked you to give him a present? Nobody. So when you're giving a present, it means be'emet, you want the good of the guy. So in such a case, you give ba'in yafa. Okay? Fine. Fine. But tamid ze ba'in yafa. It means that you're always giving with a good eye. Ha'achin shechalku. Brothers that come and they divide in the Yerusha of their father. Zachu besadeh, zachu bekula. If right now the one that's going to be zoche in the sadeh, he's going to be zoche also in the pit, the wine press, and the chicken coop. Why? Because, right, when they come and they divide in such a fashion and they're giving him this thing, they are completely removing themselves from the field. So if you're getting this field, it includes everything which is in the field. We're not going to start saying, no, it doesn't include this. No, it includes everything that's in the field. Hamachzik benichse ager. If you make a chazakah in the property of a ger, remember when a ger dies and he doesn't have any inheritors, anybody that comes and makes a chazakah in the field, they acquire it. So if somebody's going to come and he's going to be machzik, he's going to make a chazakah in the properties of a ger, hechzik basadeh, hechzik bekula. The second that he made a chazakah in the field, he made a chazakah in everything in the field. It means he doesn't exactly. That means he doesn't need to make a separate acquisition for the pit, oil press. No, the second he does it on the field, everything is included in the field. Hamagdish et hasadeh. Right? If somebody's going to come and they're going to consecrate the field, Hegdishet kula. He's going to come and consecrate the entire thing. Meaning, part of the consecration also includes consecrating means that you're giving it to the Bet HaMikdash as a present. Right? That's what you're doing. You're consecrating it to the Bet HaMikdash.
I would think no.
So you're saying that it is. He's saying even the things which are inside of it, it is included. Okay? He comes and he says, why? Because the same thing, because when you're Magdish, it's like giving a present. Meaning at the end of the day, whoever told you to consecrate something to the Bet HaMikdash, so the fact that you're already giving it, it means that you're giving it already with a good eye. Because you don't need to give it. Right? It's not a sale that you're strapped for cash and you're I don't know what, and you need to sell something. No. Whoever told you to give a present? Whoever told you to do this? Okay? Fine. Rabbi Shimon comes and he says, "Magdish et hasadeh lo yigdish ela et hacharuv hamurkav et hasadah neshikma." The exact opposite view. From everything that we just mentioned until now, when you're coming, you're being magdish hasadeh. You're only magdish the charuv hamurkav, which is the grafted carob tree, and the sadana shikma, and this pruned tree. That means even though when you come and you sell a field, you do not sell those things, right? To do with the Ekdesh, it's also magdish, part of the sadeh. Okay? Okay, there's a whole machloket here in the footnote that we're going to see later on. Okay, let's continue. Says the Gemara. Okay, Gemara. Mai shna mecher umai shna matana. What's the difference between a sale and between a present? So Piresh Yehuda ben Nekosa lifnei Rabbi explained Yehuda ben Nekosa in front of Rabbi. Ze Piresh, veze lo Piresh. The one that gives the matana, right, was mikabel. He gave everything, and therefore kana et kulam. And this one, right, the mocher did not explain what he's adding, and therefore he's not koneh, only that which he said explicitly. Meaning, when you come and you make a sale, you have to say explicitly what you're selling. And if you do not add anything explicitly that you're selling, so therefore it's not included in the sale. Okay? Meaning, when I'm selling you something, and I'm selling you a house. So obviously everything in the house, yes, but anything which is on the outside, if I don't tell you, so it's not included. Because a sale, you have to say it explicitly. Okay? Now he says, Hi, ze piresh v'zelo piresh. Zelo piresh. He says, what are you talking about? Also by a present, if I come and I give you the house of the present, whoever told you to include the field? Whoever told you to include everything else? I didn't explain anything. I just gave you the present. So he says, Ela, ze hayalo lefaresh. What does that mean? When you're giving the present, since you give it with such a nice eye, so therefore you should have said the opposite, what you're leaving behind for yourself. Meaning the status quo is you're giving everything, because you're giving with a good eye, because you don't need to give it. On the other hand, the opposite way, when you're selling something, you have to come and say what you're actually selling or not selling. Okay, now we're going to bring a story. So let's start. Hahu de amar lehu. So there was a story with a person, right, that he was a shchid mira. He was on his deathbed, and he tells his children, Havu le planya beita de machzik mea gulfe. Give to this person as a present, right, a house that has 100 barrels. Okay, 100 barrels. Now what happens is, right, they went and they found that the house actually has 120 barrels. Okay, so there was no house that had only space for 100 barrels. So Amar Morzutra says, he told them 100, and he didn't tell them 120. And therefore, right, what happens is, right, that the house which has 120 barrels, right, he didn't say he's going to give it to them. So therefore, he has to take a house which is going to be worth only with 100, and the rest is going to go to the Yorshim. The rest is going to go to the inheritors. Okay? So he comes and he says, okay, he wants to say here that in the footnote, you're going to divide the house in 6 chalakim, right? And then what's going to happen is that he only takes like 5 out of the 6 because he's only taking the 100 barrels. He cannot take the 120 barrels. Okay? We're talking about space, right? So I come and I tell you, give him a house which has I don't know how many square meters.
2,000 square feet.
Exactly, square feet.
Now they only have 2,200.
Exactly. So therefore, you divide it by 6. And then
shot, he gets the whole thing.
Okay. Ravashi comes and he says, Milo tram bemed dvarim mocher, aval noter matana notenet kula. So what are you talking about? That was only by a seller, not by giving a present. Alma, so you see from here, man diay matana by yafahiyav yahiv. Whoever's going to give a present, he's going to give it with a good eye. Achanami, so to here, so to here. If you're giving the presents, you're giving everything. He said 100. 100 is lav dafka. Really meant 120, but you have to give him the whole house. Okay, fine. Next, 2 dots. Hamagdish et hasadeh, right? Igdish et kula. So when you are going to consecrate the field, you consecrate the entire field. And then we had the second shita, Rabbi Shimon says no. So Amar Ravuna says, Afagav damur Rabbanan. Even though the rabbis come and they say, Hakonesh ilanot betoch chavero, right? Arezelo kana karka. If you're going to purchase 2 trees within the karka of your friend, right? Lo kana karka, you didn't buy the field, right? You only just bought the trees. Machar karka v'shir shnei ilanot lefanav. If you're going to sell the field and you left 2 trees over and you didn't sell these 2 trees, yesh lo karka, you did leave the karka for the trees. And therefore, right, when these trees dry up, you could, you could actually plant other trees. Because if you're going to tell me that there's no karka, so it's only the trees, the second that the trees dry up, Kadish, you're out of the field. Because you sold, right? You don't have the land for the trees. But if you have the land for the trees, even if these trees die, you plant other ones.
You were saying in the past that when you buy a tree, you also.
So says the Gemara, even according to Rabbi Akiva, that he says whenever you're going to sell something, you're going to sell with a good eye. Yeah, he says Hanamina, one of these words, that they're not going to cause any damage to the purchaser, which means it's not going to cause anything, and therefore the mocher, the seller, right, is not going to suspect. He's not going to leave anything for himself. Right? Why? He doesn't need it. So he sells everything with a good eye. But when you're talking about trees, which they weaken the land, because obviously the roots, they go deep into the land and they take the nourishment from the land, so weaken the land. So for sure, he obviously left behind. That means even according to Rabbi Akiva, he left behind, right? How do you call this, land for himself? Okay. Ayin Aleph Amud 71b. This is a very long daf, so please keep your shoes on. Yeah. In ita de lo shier. If it's going to be now, shelo shier, that you did not leave anything over, Elmaleh, he could tell him, akori lanach shekol v'zi. This is something incredible. Right now, I come, right, and I just tell you, listen, how do you call this?
John Doe?
Yes, I come and I tell John Doe, listen, right, you just bought the trees. You don't have land. So what do I tell you? Take your trees and get out of here. Why? If you don't have land, no, that's what we're saying. Because if you're going to tell me now that you don't leave any land by yourself, so therefore what happens is he could have just come and tell him, listen, if you don't have the land and I only sold you the trees, take the tree and get out. I don't want you taking nourishment from the land, from the karka. Okay? So today we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon comes and he says, so we just said if you're going to consecrate the field, you're not going to consecrate only the charuv mulkav and sedan shikma. The Tanya we learned, Amar Rabbi Shimon says Rabbi Shimon, matam, what's the reasoning? Why davka these things more than anything else? Because they are taking the yinika, the nourishment from the se'ekdesh. So therefore, if he did not want to consecrate it, right, since he was magdish at gufa sadeh, and meaning he consecrated the body of the actual field, and since these are taking the nourishments from the field, so therefore they're going to be ekdesh. You're going to tell me that you left something behind, meaning that you left something behind for your trees. What are you talking about? They're not taking nourishment from the ekdesh. They're taking nourishment from you. Because when you come and you left it over behind for yourself, for the trees are nourishing from you, not from the ekdesh. So what are you talking about? So this is a proof that really be'emet, it's actually nourishing from the ekdesh, and you don't leave anything behind from yourself. Because if you did leave behind for yourself, it's not nourishing from the ekdesh. So Rabbi Shimon de Amar, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon heals like Rabbi Akiva that when you sell with an ayin yafa, and you don't leave anything to yourself. And therefore, according to him, that's why he says that these are nourishing from the hekdesh. But Ravuna that argues on Rabbi Shimon, he holds like Rabbanan, that when you sell with a bad eye, which means that you did leave over for yourself the land, and therefore obviously not. So says the Gemara, Rabbanan, Shita, obviously, meaning, right, obviously, according to the rabbis, when you sell something and you leave over for yourself something, you're going to leave over yourself the land, which is going to be left behind. What's an afkamina? Tinafle Hadashatile, what Richard said before, if the tree fell, you could plant another one there. That's an afkamina. Right? Because if it fell, then you're going to plant another one. And then we're going to go back and forth. Can you actually say that or not? That, does Rishon hold like a Rekiva? Does he not like a Rekiva? Vechule, vechule.